What is good, folks? Hope y'all are having a good day today. Welcome back. Today we are looking back at one of the greatest animated products ever produced by Western animation. Today we are looking back on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, forewarning off the off, this video is probably going to be long. Like, more than likely, this video is going to be long as hell. Y'all can tell by the fucking time card down below. This video is more than likely going to be long. Because there's a lot to cover, because I'm covering all of Book 1 in this video. All of Season 1. So, this is what I'm finna do. This is what I'm finna do with this series. Down below, you're going to see some chapters. You're going to see time card chapters. Since I'm dividing this up between the main characters and their arcs, the world building, my rating of this entire season. So, if y'all want to skip around, y'all feel free to do that. Feel free to go around the chapters. But for now, let's get it. Sage, hit the title. Now, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Book 1, Water, follows the Southern Water Tribe siblings Sokka and Katara and a young bald monk that they're traveling with named Aang, the last Airbender and the Avatar, the one who is destined to master all four elements and bring peace to a world that is currently at global war thanks to the imperialist expansions of the Fire Nation. Now, they must travel to the northernmost water tribe to find Aang a waterbending teacher. But the issue is, they must travel hundreds upon thousands of miles north, flying through enemy territory, being chased by firebenders and confronting the very nature of the world that they are trying to change. This war that has affected countless lives. They are now being faced with it and have to learn to survive.
Why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar? Because I never wanted to be.
Now, right off the bat, this is a coming-of-age story for Aang and his friends. More than anything else, this early season sets up their personalities and their arcs going forward with bits and pieces of solid characterization. Aang, he is a good kid. He doesn't seek a fight, but he will defend the innocent if necessary. He believes in mercy, and even when it is somebody who is a constant threat to him, he will spare their lives and he will not try and kill them. He believes in second chances. He believes that if circumstances were different, people can change.
You know what the worst part about being born over 100 years ago is? I miss all the friends I used to hang out with. Before the war started, I used to always visit my friend Kuzan. The two of us, we get in and out of so much trouble together. He was one of the best friends I ever had. And he was from the Fire Nation, just like you. If we knew each other back then, do you think we could have been friends too?
He's a cheery, optimistic fish out of water in a world that has drastically changed than the one that he left behind 100 years ago. His character arc throughout the entire first season is processing his guilt and grief for abandoning the world and accepting his place as Avatar by the time of the Siege of the North Pole. Through these early episodes, like the Kyoshi Warriors and the King of Omashu, we see Aang trying to recapture the old days and being nostalgic for the good old days. Honestly, same, dude. Same. That's kind of for the exact same reasons. This world is constant chaos! Underneath this, we see Aang's immaturity. Him playing around with the people of Kyoshi, ignoring his responsibility to get to the North Pole as quickly as possible. Mainly because underneath all of this, he is trying to avoid the elephant in the room. Constantly avoiding the elephant in the room. He is a person with a lot of survivor's guilt. With a lot of it. We see that in the Southern Air Temple episode. He feels guilt over everything that has happened, not just in the world, but after seeing what the Fire Nation did to all of the other air nomads. He feels a sense of responsibility for that because he wasn't there for them. Like, he wasn't there to help his people. If he was just there, he would have saved Gyatso. This massive amount of survivor's guilt weighing on this kid. And we finally see all of this acknowledged in the Storm episode, when we finally see how he ended up in that block of ice in the first place. He ran away. He could not handle the responsibility of being the Avatar, and he just crumbled under the pressure and just ran. And honestly, I don't blame him. He is a 12-year-old kid. He is a 12-year-old kid with literally the entire weight of the world on his shoulders. And the other monks could not give him the time or the emotional support to deal with that, because the world is heading towards war. We don't have time for this. He's got to learn these elements as fast as possible. And he just couldn't handle the pressure. He just cracked under the pressure. And honestly, that is fair. And the biggest aspect of Aang, he feels guilty about this. He does not full on blame them. He does not full on blame them and just throw away that sense of responsibility. He feels guilty over that. He's essentially in denial of it until he is forced to acknowledge it, and he just crumbles because of that guilt that he couldn't be there, that he is seeing firsthand what his absence has caused for the entire world. And seeing all of that gives him that motivation to accept his responsibility as Avatar, especially now that there is a time that he has to do it. He is now running against the clock. Going back to Aang's sense of responsibility for a second, there's one episode that I forgot to mention. I forgot to mention the deserter. I forgot to mention that because of Aang's irresponsible nature and childish drive to get better at becoming a firebender and just throw fireballs quickly, he ends up burning Katara. And as we will see in the third season, we see just how far this guilt weighs on him as he vows never to firebend ever again. Not just vowing to, he's afraid to firebend ever again. His irresponsible nature led to this happening in the first place, but it was also pressured on because of the pressure of being the Avatar. He has to learn firebending before summer's end. So those two things kind of combined into the worst mistake of his life, or one of the worst mistakes of his life. I'll rephrase it. The winter solstice, and more specifically Avatar Roku, hammered home that this is his destiny. He has to defeat the Fire Lord by the end of the summer, or else he will use Sozin's comet to just burn the rest of the world and win the war. He is now on a time crunch, and he feels that pressure going into the siege of the North Pole, where he full on has to fight this army essentially on his own. And he is able to do it. We see the beginning of this. We see the beginning of him accepting his responsibility as Avatar and setting forth on this journey now that they're heading towards the Earth Kingdom to learn earthbending.
Aang is the Avatar. He's the world's only chance. You both found him for a reason. Now your destinies are intertwined with his.
In contrast to Aang's sense of irresponsibility, we have Katara, the emotional center of the group. Her main goal is to become a better waterbender. She has a deep connection to her waterbending and her sense of cultural unity as a waterbender. More than likely due to waterbenders' nature of being more culturally connected towards their people, or more towards her sense of community because she has had to be one of the caretakers of the water tribe, because her and Sokka effectively grew up without their parents being there. So she has had to take up a lot of that responsibility. Now Katara's sense of community and pride towards her waterbending also has led towards her feeling of insecurity because of said ability and her perceived lack of ability, as we see in the Water Scrolls episode, her comparing herself to Aang's development. Now, her emotional connection towards waterbending isn't just because of waterbending, it's towards bending as a whole, as she feels personally insulted in the episode about Haru that he has to hide his earthbending because of the Fire Nation. And because of that, she feels a connection towards him and tries her damnedest to help all the earthbenders in the prison out. And we see a bit later that she is willing to stand up to the Northern Water Tribe's sexist culture towards women learning the combat side of waterbending. She wants bending to be free towards everybody who can learn it. Anybody who wants to be themselves as a bender, to be themselves as a bender. She feels that connection towards waterbending. I can argue, and I kind of do, because of her mother, especially in retrospect, but we'll get to that when we get to Kaya's backstory and how she passed. And speaking of her mother, Katara only mentions her like 5 to 6 times in the season proper, and every single time it's relevant. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. She either mentions her mother in passing, like my mother died when I was little, when she is talking to somebody who has also experienced loss like Haru, or trying to relate to Aang, who was going through that guilt of losing his entire people. Or she mentions her mother when she is talking about the necklace. It is always relevant. It is never just, she never just brings it up out of nowhere. She only brings it up if the situation is appropriate. I just wanted to add that there because I've seen the memes. I have seen all the memes. I am a Katara defender. Do not try me on this.
Sokka,
I'm coming with you.
you're not old enough to go to war, Sokka. You know that.
I'm strong, I'm brave, I can fight. Please, Dad.
Being a man is knowing where you're needed the most. And for you right now, that's here protecting your sister.
I don't understand.
Someday you will.
Alright, now let's talk about Katara's older brother, Sokka. He was full on a sexist at the beginning of the show. But in those first early episodes, he was full on just a chauvinist. Definitely because he had to take that responsibility of being the man of his village because his dad and all the other warriors of the tribe left to go fight the Fire Nation. He had to take that responsibility of being the warrior, essentially being the man of the house. And because of that, he is acting in his mind how a man is supposed to act. But underneath all of that, he has this insecurity over not being good enough, not being a good enough warrior for his dad to take him with them, and not being good enough to protect his village when the Fire Nation eventually came. And eventually, like 3 episodes later, in the Kyoshi episode, this man gets vibe checked so fucking quickly.
Show yourselves, cowards! Who are you? Where are the men who ambushed us?
There were no men. We ambushed you. Now tell us, who are you and what are you doing here?
Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down.
A bunch of girls, huh? The Unagi's gonna eat well tonight. No, don't hurt him! He didn't mean it. My brother's just an idiot sometimes. Sorry about yesterday. I didn't know you were friends with the Avatar.
It's alright. I mean, normally I'd hold a grudge, but seeing as you guys are a bunch of girls, I'll make an exception.
I should hope so. A big, strong man like you, we wouldn't stand a chance.
12 seconds later.
Anything else you want to teach us?
Just so fucking quickly by basically Amazons. Like, essentially Amazons. Dude just got fucking vibe checked and put in his place so quickly. And you know what? He at least learned. Like, he learned immediately after he got put in his place. He immediately apologized to them and was genuine about wanting to learn under them to be a better warrior, because that is all he is trying to do. He's trying to be a better warrior for his family's sake and to at least live up to his dad. Underneath all of this, Sokka is an honorable person. He will acknowledge his faults and he will learn from them. Hell, he learns from his surroundings. He learns from the situations that he's in to become a better warrior and to help hold his own against full-on firebenders. He's even honorable to the point where he is willing to save a Fire Nation village because it is full of innocent people. And he is not going to let Jet drown every single one of them. He's going to go and save them because those are defenseless people. Even if they are Fire Nation, they are still innocent people and they have not done anything to hurt anybody. Like, that says a lot about Sokka's character. And over the course of this season, we see him adapt to his surroundings to the point where he is better at fighting the Fire Nation than a lot of the Northern Tribes warriors are. Like, he is better adapted to fighting them. He understands them as an enemy, really setting up his craftiness and creative nature as he finds his own way to hold his own in these situations. And honestly, I'm really gonna love to see how they develop this in the next season, and especially later on when he gets his sword. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot to mention, he is the last Rizbender for a reason. Man has got it going on.
Please, Father, I only had the Fire Nation's best interest at heart. I'm sorry I spoke out of turn.
You will fight for your honor.
I meant you no disrespect. I am your loyal son.
Rise and fight, Prince Zuko.
I won't fight you.
You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
Now, let's take a minute to vibe. Let's talk about the main antagonist at this point. Well, one of the main antagonists, but we'll talk about both of them. Let's talk about Prince Zuko, the banished prince, the son of the Fire Lord. He is set up to be a threat. He has nothing left to lose and everything to gain. He does not care how far he has to go. He does not care how far he has to travel. He does not care the lengths that he has to go to. He will bring in the Avatar so that he can restore his honor in his father's eyes. And throughout the entire season, we see these little inklings of compassion within Zuko. The first episode, not going after the Avatar because he wants his men to get thawed up. Willing to save his men's lives. Showing care for his men's lives in the Storm episode. Showing that he is not just a cruel person. Like, he's not just the stereotypical cruel person mean to his underlings. He genuinely cares about them and will consider their best interests at heart because they're in this together. This is his crew. And we see this compassion in part tempered by his uncle Iroh, his mentor and his moral compass in a sense. The wise old man giving him worldly advice in this very terrible situation that they find themselves in, and encouraging him to keep his hope up, even knowing that the Fire Lord is a terrible person. He still looks after Zuko as if he is his son, and we will see why in the next season. Oh God. Anyway, to contrast Zuko, we have Admiral Zhao, a phenomenally well done villain who does his job perfectly, not just as a threat to Aang, but also to Zuko, because Zhao has way more resources than Zuko. Like, he is an admiral of the Fire Nation military. He has significantly more resources and manpower at his hands, leaving Zuko in this position of fighting from underneath, being the sort of rogue fighting against both our heroes and Zhao. For all my DBZ fans out there, he is essentially Vegeta in the Namek saga. Like, he is working against the quote-unquote main villain at the time, and also our heroes. Everything he is doing is for his own ends. And let me talk about the Storm for a second. We see Zuko's backstory and exactly why he is so driven to get his father's love. Why he is so driven that he will take up the mantle of the Blue Spirit and turn against the Fire Nation, so long as he is the one that gets to bring in the Avatar. We see the story of how Zuko got his scar. You want to know how I said earlier how Zuko is willing to look out for his men? Well, that's the thing that got him in trouble in the first place. In a war meeting between the Fire Lord and all of his other generals, Zuko spoke up about the generals just sending men out to die. And in doing so, the Fire Lord saw him as weak, burnt his face after challenging him to an Agni Kai, a Fire Nation duel, and banishing him to go find the Avatar, essentially sending him off to die because he didn't expect him to actually find him. He just got him out of there. He just got him out of there as quickly as possible and just told him to go, and just told him to just get the fuck out. That setup is phenomenal, and it plays well into his phenomenal character arc going forward. And we will go deeper into this, especially as we get closer to Zuko alone. Zuko is a very complicated person. He's like this mix of compassion and trying to be what his father wants him to be, and this level of resentment that he has towards not being his father's favorite, or at least not being liked by his father. Like when he was talking about how his sister Azula got everything, she was the one that was born lucky, and Zuko was the one lucky to be born. This entire thing really setting up the Fire Lord as a villain, like the type of person that the Fire Lord is. But we'll come back to this a bit later on in the next part.
There's always something. Not that you would understand. You're like my sister. Everything always came easy to her. She's a fire-bending prodigy, and everyone adores her. My father says she was born lucky. He says I was lucky to be born. I don't need luck, though. I don't want it. I've always had to struggle and fight, and that's made me strong. It's made me who I am.
The world building in Avatar is simply phenomenal. Because our heroes are traveling from place to place, going from one location to another in a very episodic fashion, we see all of these different locations, all of these different cultures clashing with each other or standing alone. We see how all of these different peoples have different reactions to the 100 Years' War. We can go from an adapting culture like the people in the Western Air Temples, their struggle with modernization and Aang's inner turmoil with, these people are disrespecting my culture, but these people are displaced, and they are improving this temple, but I need to show them that this place is still sacred and they need to respect that. We can go from things like that to things like the fortune teller, where these people are just so fixated with these fortunes that they believe it down to the dot, and now they became a city saved from volcanic activity by the Avatar. We go from that to exploring the spirit world. That aspect of the Avatar, that he is not just the guardian of the physical world, he needs to create balance within the spirit world as well. And that playing a role in how he beats the Fire Nation fleet in the Siege of the North. Because he is so entwined with the spirits, because he has to be, we get a whole bunch of lore. We get a whole bunch of lore of the spirit of the water spirits Wei and Yu. We get Ko the Face Stealer. We get all of these aspects of lore just explaining the Avatar world. It's just phenomenal. Even the music itself reflecting all of these different bits of culture and lore just to a fascinating degree. Like the first Agni Kai between Zhao and Zuko. Just that almost war drum, but with all of these Asian influences mixed in the background. The Water Tribe, more specifically Yue's mix of music, the Four Seasons music. Like all of these different aspects just giving the world a bit more life. Just phenomenally well done. Well, honestly, one of my favorite examples of this is in The Deserter, where we see the Fire Nation's cultural like the first inkling of Fire Nation cultural biases towards themselves. Like the people of this Fire Nation village absolutely revering the Fire Lord in this cultural festival, still showing a celebration of him. Like we see these bits of culture and just like this Chinese New Year-esque celebration of, I don't even know what it's for, with just these little string puppet plays about the Fire Lord. These little bits of culture that just essentially humanize the Fire Nation. They are still the bad guys. Like, the military are still the bad guys, and we are fighting to take them down. But there is a culture here. Like, there is an actual culture here. We're not just taking out stormtroopers. We are at least seeing what these people are like. Between this and the episode with Jet, we do humanize these people, and we do separate the fact that we're at war with the Fire Lord and his military. We're not against the Firebenders as a whole. And that is one of the best aspects that I think the first season did. Editor Sage here. I forgot to point out a few other locations that I really love in terms of world building and just geography of the world. Like Omashu just being a giant fortress built in the side of a mountain with its main system of transportation or trade being those giant slides and things built, like just being maneuvered by earthbending. And just the Northern Water Tribe, just full on, not having igloos like the Southern Water Tribe, full on making structures, palaces, everything out of ice with just water flowing through it. It really just shows that water is life out there. And that is just amazing. Overall this season, a very well done first season, setting up the likable traits of the characters, their flaws as characters, and setting up inklings for their arcs going forward. Aang's sense of responsibility and survivor's guilt as the Avatar. Sokka's growth and insecurity in not being the warrior that he thinks he should be. And Zuko's entire path towards redemption arc, and it being cultivated by Uncle Iroh. All of these seeds eventually getting grown. Like all of these seeds that get developed further and further as the show will go on, and as we'll see in the next part. But before that, I want to point out 3 key episodes in this season that are c'est magnifique. Not just A+, but S+. I'm talking about Zhong the Deserter. That episode was phenomenal, and I love the setup in it. I love the setup for Zhong as a character. Like, he is a very interesting character. Like, this general that abandoned his position and just went AWOL after seeing everything that the Fire Nation has ordered him to do, resenting the destruction that he's caused, even resenting the firebending that he has, viewing firebending as just the element of destruction, and viewing it as, this is something that needs to be tamed. This is something that needs to be held at bay. And being sure to instill Aang this lesson that you cannot play around with fire. Unlike all the other elements, fire is alive, and if left at bay, it will cause destruction, and you need to be concerned about that, and you need to be wary of that. Zhong, like this grizzled old veteran who has just completely become disillusioned and damn near mad. Like he is just a character straight off of Apocalypse Now.
Master, I need to learn firebending.
Only a fool seeks his own destruction.
I'm the Avatar. It's my destiny to—
Destiny? What would a boy know of destiny? If a fish lives its whole life in this river, does he know the river's destiny? No! Only that it runs on and on, out of his control. He may follow where it flows, but he cannot see the end. He cannot imagine the ocean.
Okay.
Are you an assassin? I'm a soldier. You're neither. You're an errand boy, sent by grocery clerks. collect the bill.
And the other two episodes that I would highly recommend in this season, The Storm and The Blue Spirit. Parallels between Aang and Zuko as we see both of their backstories, both of their major flaws as characters. One, Aang's entire downward spiral being caused by an act of selfishness, and Zuko's entire downward spiral being caused by an act of selflessness. These two kind of paralleling but also contrasting each other. And the Blue Spirit, because just how far Zuko is willing to go, just how driven of a character he is, and that, once again, revisiting that parallel between Aang and Zuko, as Aang talks about, if things were different, I believe we could have been friends. Like, really setting up for the future arc that these two will go on much later. But for now, this is Avatar Season 1 Retrospective. I hope y'all enjoyed the show today. I hope y'all have a good day. Stick around for the next part. I'll catch y'all next time. Sage out.
Shiny teeth that twinkle, just like the stars in space. My shiny teeth that sparkle, and beauty to my face. My shiny teeth that glisten, just like your Christmas tree.